You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa and Nolte,
And I'm Ben Wright.
and we're going to get right into it. Ben, what is your hot take?
When you're growing a business, it is not about perfection, but more about progress.
This feels like the universe has dropped this into my lap in this exact moment because there's so many times where I get caught up in the creation of it and the science behind the creation of it and everything that goes into building it, and then by the time it comes time to actually build the damn thing, I'm so sick of the process of perfecting that I never actually make progress. So tell us more what you mean it by this, and what does it mean for our listeners?
Well, as we get into that, Alison, thanks very much for having me on the show today. And I did say to you at the start, I'd say this, but I apologize to everyone listening for my deep, heavy Australian accent. I get asked to slow down all the time by my North American customers. So I'll do my very best, but I get excited and I tend to speed up
Yeah.
when I get excited. But as we get into that, it's worth understanding. So my background's 25 years now in selling, 25 years in building businesses, 25 years in leading businesses. And across that period of time, I've covered a lot of ground. I've worked for corporates. I've worked for small startups. I've built small startups into medium businesses that have sold out to very large entities. And I've consulted now through to well-funded startups through to multi-billion dollar revenue line businesses. And if there's one thing that I've seen really consistently stifle progress is the want for perfection and the want for putting out to market something that is just going to deliver the absolute perfect result for the business or the customer. And on the flip side, where I've seen businesses do really well, particularly in go-to-market roles, particularly in sales roles, is learning that improvement comes from lots of fast, small iterations. And I'm a big fan of the Atomic Habits book, which is the 1% better every day. In fact, I run it through all of my programs, my academies run it, got merchandise around it. And everything we do is around making small improvements that you can build on through those conversations that you consistently and repeatedly have with be it your customers, be it your suppliers, be it your internal stakeholders. And the businesses that recognize that and understand that we want to get small little incremental improvements into our business every day, they're the ones that I tend to see really great results come from programs that we get involved in.
There's a lot of important things that you're saying in here because it's interesting to see how our culture has really, really changed. Part of it, I do think, is like the age of the internet and the age of the smartphone. So I'm going to take it in a different direction, and then I promise I'll bring it back.
Yeah,
But one
sure.
of the things that we have seen in our Gen Z kids as they are coming up into the world is that they are so terrified of making mistakes, and to the point where it becomes paralysis, where they just expect you to give you the formula, to give them the formula, and to give them the step by step, and they really lack that, like, okay, what can I do? What can I try? Kind of mentality that some of us who are a little bit older
Yeah.
have had to have. And they did a ton of research on this, that it is not just them being like lazy or not wanting to try things, but it's that they've grown up in the age of the smartphone where every mistake they've ever made was captured on video, posted to a Snapchat story, and circulated amongst friends and enemies alike. And so they've gotten this fear of doing anything in public because they don't wanna fail in public, so therefore they don't do anything in public. And I think that maybe that is that same phenomenon we are seeing in some of our entrepreneurs, because the idea that you could fail and fail spectacularly and go viral for failing in some cases, like, that is a little bit scary. And so when we're thinking about how do we build in public in small, effective iterations so that we leave that echo chamber, like, how do we figure out what we can do in public and focus on progress, and what really does need to have that level of perfection, and where is that threshold?
It's a really interesting topic you bring up. As I was going through the direct sales ranks, and of course, I'm still involved in that now. Every good sales leader and business leader, I believe, are involved in coalface activities. We always used to say that the Generation X, so I'm 43, so think my age and older, would tell you nothing but would make decisions. And then the generations that came after us would tell you everything but never make a decision. And they were very different types of buyers that you deal with. But when it comes to getting past that decision paralysis and trying to work out your path forward. There's a number of ways you can do it, but something that's worked really well for myself, that's worked really well for the businesses that I've built, and it's worked really well for my customers is that if you're in doubt, lean into something that's going to add value for the customer. Because if you make a mistake, but it's adding value to another party, then those mistakes are often overlooked with lenses of best intentions, with lenses of they haven't nailed it, but I can see they've got my best interests in heart. I live by a quote: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's really stood me well in difficult situations over the last 15 to 20 years, of which I've had plenty building businesses, particularly that grew really fast. We were making multiple mistakes daily. But I think where you've got that lens of, okay, what am I going to do to make the customer's life better? So how am I going to solve a problem for them that they either can't solve or don't want to solve? Or how am I going to help them bring to life an opportunity that's sitting in front of them that, again, they either don't have the resources to do or don't have the desire to do? When you focus on that lens, it tends to move you forward because you're building a relationship. You're building a bond with a customer, and that I heard Lisa Ray will say with you, those who buy from you are those who know, like, or trust you, right? Really common sentiment around buyers in the market. So if you take that lens, focus on the customers, and then you iterate, like you make changes, you improve like crazy. For me, that's where I see businesses able to make progress and not get stuck in that paralysis of making decisions.
How much of that is progress with a lens of pursuit of perfection? So let me ask that in a different way. So I think about the people who just kind of steamroll ahead and they never learn from their mistakes and they never learn what they did wrong and never apply it going forward. So then they end up just in this perpetual cycle of, yeah, they're making progress, but is it the best form of that progress? Are they evolving as they go forward? So, how much should we retrospect as we are going forward and we're making progress and we're not getting stuck in the concept of perfection, but learn these lessons and pull them forward and pull them through?
But I think when we look at a lens of progress and the lens of perfection, if you like, progress is all about now and what we're doing each and every day to move ourselves forward. Whereas our goals and where we'd like to land, it's very much aspirational. It's very much about setting targets and lining ourselves up with a North Star to try and hit in the future. And so for me, I think that, and for many of the teams that we work with, having perfection as a goal or having very high standards as a goal is really important. But being able to recognize progress and celebrate the wins along that journey is equally, if not more important. And that's where the progress lens, and if we can look at a sales role here, for example, the sales lens in a moment, being able to recognize that progress through small steps forward. And even if you've taken a couple back or taken one back and then gone forward again, that keeps you moving, that keeps you focused, that keeps you motivated, that keeps you energized to get out of the car or out of your bed and really fire into work each day. Rather than measuring yourself against the goal each and every moment, you tend to live in a groundhog day where it really can take a long time to reach those goals. So if you have little step gates along the way, and if we look at a sales lens, if you're trying to grow your business and your focus is on, okay, well, today it's on how do I greet the customer, and then next week it's going to be on how do I understand what they need, and then the month after it's going to be on how do I improve my quote, and then the month after that it's how do I engage with the customer on follow up, and then to use your lens in the month after that it's how do we take someone from I'm buying again. We have these small steps that actually allow you to make that progress, and as you make each step, your progress compounds because you've improved your greeting to a customer. That's better. You've got a better baseline. And then you go and improve your quote and you've got improvement on improvement. So very quickly you start to move towards that goal a lot faster than you would if you hadn't taken those first little baby steps.
If someone is hearing this, they lead a sales organization or they are trying to grow their startup, what is the first thing you would have them start doing to go on this path of figuring out how do we get better every single day? How do we improve our customer relationship? How do we grow without worrying so much about being perfect?
I might answer in two parts. I do this a lot. I'm sorry, Alyssa. Sometimes the deep heavy accent allows me to get away with it because people can only understand half of what I'm saying, so I may as well say twice as much. So,
It's okay. I
um,
did just ask you a three-part question and a single question, so I think it's okay if you take it in two
oh
parts.
well, good, good. What goes around comes around. Uh, so the first part, look, from a theoretical point of view, it's have a look internally at what you do that adds customers value. Now, that can be through a brilliant product. Doesn't have to be. It can be through how you service your customers in the sales process. It can be your speed of delivery. It can be how you deliver the process. It can be that you're really good at a number you've got a good product and a good sales process and a good delivery process, but not necessarily the best on all of them because I'll be frank, it doesn't take a lot to stand out in the sales world at the moment. So take that theoretical look, all right? Where do we add value? Now that will get your mind lined up around where you need to head. The next place that I would start is how you engage with your customers when you're meeting with them. So be that a video meeting, be that phone-based sales teams, or really, really be that teams that meet customers face to face. Have a look at that moment because when we can effectively have customers decide they're going to buy from us before we even quote, that's when we close deals. And I could use examples everywhere, but let's think of one for me. I'm getting some fencing put into my house here. We have quite a big property. We live in a beautiful part of Australia, right on the beach. It's called Noosa Heads. Anyone listening, look it up. It's fantastic. But we're building a fence. And I'd made the decision and I hate to admit, but I'd made the decision on who I wanted to use from the process of when they came and visited me, how they dealt with me, how they spoke to me, how they asked me what I needed, why I needed a certain height, what I wanted the fence to do. Right. And regardless as to where that quote came in, within reason, so within your plus or minus 10% range, I was going to choose that person. And they did that by a really effective engagement process with me before we spoke about price. So for teams that I work with, it's the number one area I say to look at. Get that initial engagement right, and your close rates will jump immediately, regardless of anything else you do. So that'd be the two. To answer your three-part question, I hope it does. They would be the two things that I'd suggest.
I resonate with this so strongly because I did the exact same thing with the contractor when we were remodeling the bathroom. I paid a premium, probably 20% more than I would have if I would have just hired the other guy. But the thing about the person that we ended up choosing who was more expensive was he was very communicative. He showed up on time. He had great questions for me. He followed up with me after the presentation to see if I had any questions and after he, gave the quote. And I just hired a cleaning person for my house, and she got the job because she followed up. Because I put out a bunch of quotes. I got a bunch of quotes back. I didn't follow up on any of them because I'm busy. She reached out and said, "Hey, I sent you that. Are you still wanting to go forward?" And I was like, "Yep, you know what? It's you because you have the gumption to follow up with me. You're more expensive than the other ones, but at least I know that you're reliable and you're thinking about the business aspect of our relationship, and I can trust you and rely on you." I read a study actually that it was something like 85% of people, something like that, some high number, come into a sales presentation with their mind almost already made up. Like they've done the research on your business, they've read up on your business, they might have even asked around to see if anybody had worked with you before, and they're really looking for that last final push of does your outward appearance, what you've put out there, match what I feel when I have a conversation with you? And they make that last little bit of decision on vibes, right? So I think that your comment about how we experience that can have an overriding factor of what you're offering and even how much you cost, right? It all just depends on who we are as people and what we value.
Absolutely. And I think the bad news is it doesn't take a lot to stand out in
No,
this
it's
world.
that's
Um,
sad, isn't it? Like that in a world of how many billions of people,
uh,
we're all so the same these days that we can't it's not that hard to stand out.
yeah, yeah. And that's the bad news or the sad news. The good news is if you're in business, the opportunity is right there in front of you to take it with just a few small tweaks or the mentality of progress over perfection, 1% better every day, right? Pick which one you like the best. That's the good news that comes from that. I like sad news better than bad news, actually. So thank you. That's the good news that comes from that is that if you're prepared to commit to those small improvements, you really can make a huge difference to your business.
So let's make a sales pitch for the listeners here then on this concept of, you know, progress over perfection, exactly as you stated, but also looking at and breaking down their sales experience into kind of those bite-sized pieces. What's in it for me if I go along with your thesis and your theory?
So you as a business owner or a sales leader, well, what's in it for you is a number of things. And I think the most impactful, the message that tends to land mostly with the customers we work with is if you could imagine yourself 3 months down the track and you're generating the same number of leads, but your business has grown 20 to 30%. How would you feel about that? And look, it's a loaded question. Almost every business I say, unless they're on a faster growth curve than that, but almost every business leader I work with says, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take 20 to 30%. And I say, great. Well, if you lean into executing your sales process better, and quite simply that first part there, that quotation process, the meet and greet, those early introductions, on average, the people that I'm working with are getting 20 to 30% growth in that 3 to 4 month period without any more leads. Because what you're simply doing is making more from what you have. And I think that the what's in it there is so powerful because what it's saying is you can grow your business without investing more money. It takes just a little bit of time. And look, perhaps there is a little bit of money if you go and get some outside help, but it's certainly not significant amounts of money generating lead. And for most people that I work with, that is more than enough to get them moving along and to do something about it. So I think the what's in it for them is really clear, 20 to 30% if you can improve that process without needing to generate more leads.
And what about one of the things that I see with business owners and leaders and salespeople, honestly, all human beings who have to make decisions, sometimes we get kind of caught in our own echo chambers. We can't see our process clearly, or we might think that we are delivering the best possible experience, but sometimes that outside perspective comes in and says, "Oh, this is what you're seeing. This is your blind spot. This is what you're missing." What do you think is the blind spot that people have when it comes to their own process and experiences that are maybe negatively impacting their overall outcomes?
It's typically actually their experience that is the blind spot. They've been doing this for a number of years. Their teams have been doing this for a number of years, and they've built up such a huge database of knowledge that it then becomes quite difficult to stuff all that knowledge into that one unique situation. So the results that come from that is they either throw all that experience or too much of that experience into a situation, becomes information overkill in their sales processes. But more regularly, what happens is process is inconsistent because there's just so much there to draw from. They're pulling from this lever and then that lever, and then both those levers together in all different types of sales calls. So what I actually find is people who are really experienced is that they're inconsistent in their processes. For those that aren't experienced, they don't know what they don't know. So they think they have a sales process, but just having generally a steady hand, a calm hand, an experienced hand, get involved with them. And it doesn't have to be a paid consultant. It can be someone that you know. It can be someone else in the business. Lots of ways you can do it, but certainly having a consultant in is one of those. Having those hands come in, it just opens your eyes to what you are sometimes too close to see clearly. Right? We can't all read a book with it right in front of our face. As we get older, sometimes we've got to move that book away. So that'd be the main message I'd say is that it doesn't matter whether you're experienced or inexperienced. It's your experiences that will often get in the way of a really strong sales process.
Considering all of the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else should we be paying attention to?
So me, just recently, just in the last couple of weeks, I've built my first AI agent. So I used OpenClaw and then OpenAI to build that agent out. Wow, has it changed the game for me? I have instantly lifted the value I'm delivering to my customers from having built this. Now, I had no idea what to do, but I think the person or the podcast that got me going on there was Moonshots with Peter Diamandis. I don't know if you listened to that one there, but that's got me moving. So that started the progress journey for me in bringing AI into my business, bringing it in more than just consulting ChatGPT for some research or for some opinions. So I'd encourage people to listen to that if they want to get moving. And then from a sales point of view, I don't agree with everything he says, but I do love the energy and the perfection when we so moonshots for progress, for perfection. The Alex Hormozy approach around how you can grow businesses, really big, really quick. What he does is he just challenges the status quo. So for me, and again, I want to repeat it, is I don't roll out a lot of what his frameworks are. I don't necessarily buy up to them because I think they work for those who are ready to savagely give up their life and throw into their business, but not necessarily everyone, right? He's an incredibly hard worker. But his concept to say push yourself, aim for the stars. I really like that as an aspirational piece, a motivational piece to get me thinking and moving into what I do next. I think they'd be the two that I would recommend you go and have a listen to if you haven't already.
And I'm gonna break the fourth wall for a second because we were talking actually before the podcast recording. Spoiler alert for those who don't do podcasts. There's always like a pre-conversation before record actually happens. And one of the things you were telling me about is your academy that you're working on. I would love to hear more about that and share with us like what is it and what does it look like to get involved with something like that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Well, I'm 25 years in the workforce now, and across those 25 years, I've lived a lot of lives, corporate lives. I've built multiple businesses. I'm into my eighth business now. We're launching a really large content podcast studio here in Australia. I think it'll be the largest one in the country, so super exciting. But along that journey, what I realized is, and the feedback I got is that the frameworks I have around selling and my ability to simplify those frameworks into really meaningful ways that we can go about engaging with our customers was what landed most with my teams and my customers. So I built out an academy. It's called the Sold Out Sales Teams Academy. It launched about 4 months ago. Got a great cohort of people. I limited the first cohort into 6 people. We've got those 6 people in there. I'm just about to open it up now into the next cohorts. And everyone that's jumped into that so far has had forward progress on their business. I think for me, it's a testament to that business. In fact, I've had one person who is slightly separate to that academy, but follows the same principles. He's grown 4 times. It's 4 times the size of what he was 15 months ago. So terrific results there. So I'm opening that up and I guess true to my word around progress. What I'm doing to get that started for people is giving them a chance to have a free quote or a free template order. They get 20 minutes with me. I'll pick apart a couple of things on your quote and we'll be able to move the dial for you for free just from that. So I think we're going to put the link into your show notes, I believe, which I'll send across. And that's a great way to book some time. My time slots work really well with the West Coast of the USA. They work really well with the Asia Pacific region. So there's lots of opportunity there for those that are interested.
And if someone is really connecting specifically with you, is there anywhere online that they can follow your journey, your story, or your content?
Yeah, my wife jokes it's not at all hard to find me online, but if you go to strongersalesteams.com, so strongersalesteams.com, you can easily find me there. Otherwise on LinkedIn, it's under Coach Ben Wright, BenWrigh. They're the easiest ways to get in touch. But you drop me a line, or I get back to everyone. There's no one automating across my emails. It's always been big for me that I get across my messages. So you're always happy to connect with people.
And if you're looking for me, you can find me at Alyssa Nolte on LinkedIn. If you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under the publication Alyssa Likes to Talk. Would love to connect with you all there. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thank you so much for chatting with me halfway across the world. I loved this conversation, and I think it's so important for everyone to understand that we can create growth, we can create great sales teams, but we have to think about that customer first and how can we create value for them, even if it's not necessarily the perfect vision of what we intended to go out to do. So thank you for joining me today. I loved this conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.